Streaming now. Well, welcome to our Wednesday Q&A with 12 Ronnies. We've got two familiar faces actually, mentors on the call today. We got Manu and Chris, and today we'd like to focus on the product side of things when launching a business. And I've got some questions that I wanted to put to the gentlemen. But if you have any questions, the people that are watching this live, if you have any questions, if you're on LinkedIn or any of the other platforms, please put them into the comments, and we'll view them through this streaming device and be able to address them. So please feel free to ask questions, and we'll do our best to address them over the next half an hour. But first of all, I've got a first question prepared, which I'd like to put to Chris and Manu. The first question being, and I've posted it up here, and we'll show here is, and Manu, if I can start with you first of all, these questions that I've prepared are all around the product side of things, which I know that is an area that you specialize in, but they're all to do in the context of launching a business. So these are all about the very early stage of the product side of things. And the first question is much more about the research side of things. So could you talk us through what you see as the most effective methods for conducting market research to validate demand for a product? So it's really the research side. Just some effective methods maybe you could outline for the audience, please.
Got it. I think it depends on the product. I think most of my experience, has been, in a very specific domain. But generally speaking, we have, depending on obviously the amount of resources you have, you could go the third-party route. There are companies that allow you to do these kind of research. They arm you with data. They go do the field studies and things like that. So if you're willing to spend the money, that could be one way. The other one that I have found extremely beneficial is going and talking to the customers. Oftentimes founders don't realize how effective just these one-on-one conversations are, to just go talk to them and find out what is it that they like and dislike and things like that. In those conversations, I've also found what is beneficial is taking on a hypothesis-driven approach. You can't just go talk to them and say that, hey, tell me what works. Like you need to work off of some hypothesis and prove or disprove that, and then use that to improve your product. So being very intentional about what you want to get out of those would be beneficial. The other thing that we do at Amazon is we do like soft launches. For example, if you're unfamiliar, with the product, we don't know how to scale, we don't know when to scale. We launch that in a specific neighborhood in a given city. For example, I led the Amazon Prime same day launch, and that is a product where customers would get access to same day selection. We really did not know how big that would become and what are the challenges it would pose from an inventory management or from an operations perspective. Like, for example, we launched that in specific zip codes in Toronto and Vancouver. We learned the customer behavior, what selection do they buy, how much do they buy, and then we kind of scale that to different parts of the country. So doing these scale launches would also give you a good window into the customer behavior, what is it that they like, and how this is going to go. The final one is obviously doing some competitive analysis. Like if you if there are like-to-like products, going and spending time with those, and there in many instances there's like publicly available data. If you're talking about CPG goods, there is like Nielsen data available. So getting access to that would also give you some good proxies that you could kind of go off of. So those are like the 4 or 5 things that come to my mind.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. That's really useful. And actually, Chris, if I could turn to you, because I know you're currently working on a platform called Crowdmall, which addresses this what Manu's actually been talking about here. Maybe you could give us a little view into Crowdmall and how that's relevant in terms of conducting market research to validate demand.
Well, as Manu said, he was talking about soft launches. Essentially, what Crowdmore does is it allows people who've got products to find out whether or not there's any can everybody hear me? Sorry, I've lost the picture.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry, I switched the settings so that you could be seen
okay,
on the screen.
Sorry, yeah. No, it was, I thought you disappeared. So what Crowdmore does is it allows people to test products that they haven't yet launched, to get some idea of market product market fit, of idea validation, and also some idea of who their customers are, by essentially pre-selling the product once, as long as they're pre-validated, because they have money and they know how they're gonna. Sorry, not what's the word? It's gone for now. But yeah, as long as they are, they have the money to raise, to actually pay for things that they want to order if they're getting orders from people for pre-launch orders, and also to manufacture, the product. They need to have that in place, and they also need to know how they're going to deliver the product to their customers. And you can do all of that before you launch, which is a bit of a game changer. Because at the moment, if you just launch after you've got some money without doing, the necessary research to find out who your ideal customers are, then you can waste a lot of money on advertising that is to the wrong people. So I could talk more about that later, Simon. But
no, that's good. That's really helpful. And because we're talking about the product side of things, we're further down the line towards launch than we are at being at the idea stage. So we've actually talking about having a product here, from what rather than just an idea and looking at validating an idea. So this is further down the line.
The point of that is just to make sure that people aren't hanging around for ages waiting for something that they've pre-ordered, so that it's actually going to be a fairly fast process to pre-order something and then to get it perhaps a couple of months later.
Superb. Thanks, gentlemen. And if anybody listening, if you've got questions, please put them in the message in the chat, and we'll have a go at them, go answering them. I've got another question now that I want to post up for Manu and Chris to have a look at and address. And this is now a little bit more around the product development and innovation side of things. So, gentlemen, how could I ensure that my product stands out in a crowded market and continuously meets customer needs? So it's really about product being standing out. Chris, do you want to have a go at that?
I think the key thing is to stay true to yourself. You have, preferences. You have your own personality. You have your own interests. And if you spotted a niche somewhere, then it's pointless going after a niche that you've got no interest in. So even if you could make money there, then it's pointless because you're not going to be, motivated to kind of explore that. But if you can find gaps in the market which you're actually interested in, and the beauty is that if there's a market out there already that people are making money at selling stuff in your field, then that's good news, because it shows that people are actually making money. And if because of your interests and your preferences, you can actually spot that there's an opening, then that's a good sign. But then you go through the same process that we talked about before in terms of validating the market and testing and doing experiments to find out whether there are actually any customers there, even though it looks like a lucrative opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And Manu, same question to you in terms of ensuring that your product stands out in a crowded market, because I know this is something that's really important.
Yeah, I see two parts to this question. On the first one, I feel you have to figure out the different vectors that you want to kind of play in. There could be a pricing related thing. There could be a quality related thing, for example, that you want to stand out. So be very clear in terms of what dimensions you want to create that unique value proposition. So thinking about where you want to operate, how you want to create that unique value that doesn't come with the other competing products. That is kind of number one. I think this probably goes back to what Chris was saying. Second is, I feel oftentimes founders don't do a good job of actually communicating that value. It can be in terms of the packaging, it can be in terms of your marketing, it can be, in terms of like if you have an opportunity to go in front of customers and talk about your product. Oftentimes, if you communicate that clearly in terms of where you stand and why you're actually doing this, it's extremely powerful. And once customers actually understand, some of the reasons, some of the motivations, and why, those things are kind of important, why it is the way it is, it becomes much easier. So I feel there is a two-part answer. One is figure out, how to create that unique value proposition, the specific dimensions, and two, make sure you're clearly communicating that through the various touch points, through advertising, through packaging, through customer service, for example. So that becomes, super clear. And then the second part of the question I see is the continuously meeting the customer demand. I think that probably goes back to the market research. Like once the customers start using it, rarely I've seen instances, where you launch a product and you're just done. It doesn't happen at all. You have to continuously improve the product. Even iPhone these days, for example, there is a newer version that comes out every year, right? On the basis of, what the customers are saying, on the basis of their own research. So figuring out those specific touch points of customer, ingesting the customer feedback, and then, figuring out what to do, about them, how to improve, getting those cycles in for the rapid iteration. I think that becomes super critical for you to ensure that you're continuously meeting your customer needs. And oftentimes customers themselves change. You think your customer belong to this one segment, and once you launch, you learn something else. Now you have a wider customer segment or this other customer segment that you need to pivot your product to. So it becomes super critical to ensure that you have these touch points, to understand how your product is being used, what the customers are telling you, so that you could keep up with, with that demand.
That's that's very useful advice. In many ways, if you're at the product stage and you have customers using your products, you're gathering a lot more information now than when you're at the idea stage and you're really researching about what you think the demand could be and what you think customers want. You've got a lot more information now to run with. So yeah, that's really helpful. Okay, I'm gonna post the next question up, gentlemen. So this question now, I'm gonna post up onto the slide, and this is about best practices for setting. It's really setting pricing and competitive pricing, which is a very, very hard subject, really, to get your head around. And it's so difficult to price your products correctly at the beginning. I know from personal experience, there's a lot of guesswork involved in doing this, and where you start out. But I'm just wondering if there's any tricks of the trade or anything that for the audience that you could just point them in the right direction around pricing. And Chris, if I go to you, if you've got any thoughts about the pricing side of things.
Well, I'm sure Manu's got some sort of detailed stuff from his own experience. But what I would say is, first thing to do is see what your competitors are charging, if you do have competitors, because it's always good to do some business intelligence research. And the other thing is you can do some A/B testing. So you can start within the group of people that have shown interest. Perhaps you have a landing page where you're collecting names and email addresses of people who are interested in your product. You can start to message them and ask them questions. Would you prefer this or would you prefer that? And get over a number of different questions, and you can start to work out what a good price might be if it's something which is completely new. And the other thing is, you can always set a kind of your initial price as a kind of introductory offer. so that you're pitching it a bit low to start with, just to get volume buying the product. And then you can say, well, it's only available for the first, 20 people who buy, or it might be for the first month, or whatever. And then the prices go up. And then by that point, you've probably got a better idea of how much people are prepared to pay for your product.
Thank you, Chris. And Manu, pricing strategies and setting prices. This is such a difficult subject. What's your thoughts here? I'd be very keen to hear from you here.
Yeah, this can be tough, especially if you're a new entrepreneur or founder. This can literally like make or break you. Some of these decisions can be like one-way door decisions. You price too low, it'll be very hard for you to increase. Or you go in too high and then you actually go low, your customers are not going to trust you, right? What do you do? It becomes super, critical for you to really be intentional and think through, how you want to approach this. And theory actually says there is multiple ways. You could just take a cost-based approach, right? I mean, it costs you X. I'm not going to lose money on this, or my appetite to lose money is Y. On the base of that, it's a simple math. So it's a cost-based approach is one. Second is value-based. I think I'm gonna, generate this much value for the customer, and I'm gonna quantify that value on the basis of something. Recently I was reading an interesting case study. There's this artificial turf. Either people mow their lawns, they have to water them every day, they have to clean them, or they could just install artificial turf. Also random. They're different products, but it's a good replacement for a lawn. And these artificial turfs are, super expensive. For like 2,000 square feet or 3,000 square feet, it can probably cost like $5,000 or $7,000, which is super expensive. And then I was just reading the study that says it definitely doesn't cost as much to make that. It's just simple plastic and vinyl, made somewhere in China. But why are they actually charging so high? It's because it's value-based pricing. They figure out that customers spend a lot of money in keeping their yard clean. They have to mow the lawn, they have to ensure that the edges are trimmed, they have to water them every day, and things like that, right? And there is a certain amount of value that they've kind of quantified. If customers are actually spending X money, that translates to this much amount of dollars or pounds. So it's called value-based pricing. So you decide what makes sense for you. I think Chris, hit upon the other, critical things like A/B testing is the other one. The one that I also see leveraged a whole lot these days is like freemium model, where you have an introductory like free you give out free offers to the customer saying, hey, this is just introductory pricing, you're going to get it for free. They also use that as an opportunity to kind of understand the customer feedback, the initial demand, so that they could actually go build out a proper product with additional features that they could then kind of build upon. So freemium is the other one, but the important thing with freemium is you need to ensure that you're taking a long-term view. It's not enough for you to say that, hey, this is what I'm going to do next month. You need to have a really long-term roadmap to ensure that you are breaking even or you're making money, how you'll actually get profitable, what are the additional features you attack on, and what is the value of that. So it becomes crucial to think through all of that.
That's really insightful, actually, and particularly for me about value-based pricing, because a lot of the work we do at 12 Ronnies and in the mentoring work is to help entrepreneurs uncover the problems that they're looking to solve for the customers. And in doing that, and in uncovering the problems, you really want to outline what the value this is to customers. So it's very connected, value-based pricing, I guess, with our approach at 12 Ronnies to uncovering real customer problems, not just perceived problems, and how customers are currently going about solving them, and how the product or service being on offered by the entrepreneur increases the value to the customer. So I do quite like the value-based pricing approach. So thanks very much for that, gentlemen. Next question then. I'll post the question up. 1 second. Let me show the question. Okay, so I've got a question really, and it's more the product's made now. It's and what we're really looking to do is get customer feedback. And I know we've addressed some of this in some of the answers to the earlier questions, but it's customer feedback is so important in terms of improving the product and improving it continuously. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are there. And I'll start with you, Manu, this time. So how would you effectively gather and implement customer feedback to improve a product continuously?
I would really think through the specific mechanisms first. Do you want to go talk to the customers like live, or do you want to set up surveys that you want to send out emails to? So figure out the specific method or the mechanisms in which you want to gather feedback. And number two is, I think this goes back to one of the things I was saying earlier, be very hypothesis driven. I think as and when you get the feedback, you need to be able to parse that efficiently to understand, what it means for you, for your company, and for your product. It can be about pricing, it can be about customer service, it can be about packaging, or whatever it is, right? I would say that you need to get very clear in terms of the specific dimensions, the specific vectors you want to parse that feedback. And number three, you need that rapid iteration model. What are you going to do with that feedback? Are you just going to sit on it and not do anything? Or if you take too long, the follow-on surveys that you send, the follow-on connects you have, customers aren't going to trust you. They're not going to like you because they might feel that they're giving all this information and you're not doing anything about it, right? So third most important one is building that closed loop feedback mechanism in terms of improving your product or changing how you kind of operate. And number four, oftentimes, founders forget is the communication thing.
Yes.
It literally says something very simple as, hey, I've heard this from you, customer. This is what I've done. Thank you so much for your feedback. This is what you're going to get in the next iteration. That goes a long way in earning trust. A lot of people kind of forget that still happens. To me, you take so many things for granted. I mean, at the end of the day, if customers are giving you feedback, they're giving you valuable time. Feedback is very hard to kind of come by. So you need to attach a lot of premium to the customer feedback and ensure you are, treating that as such and ensure you're doing something about it.
Thank you, Manu. That's very, very insightful. Very, very insightful. Chris, what's your thoughts on this?
I would just going back to Crowdmall, because I think that's will give you a bit more insight. What I didn't say before is that when a person pre-orders a product, then they're asked on that sort of journey down the funnel a few basic kind of demographic questions, which we kind of say to the customer. This will really help this product that you're interested in to succeed if you answer the questions truthfully and honestly. So you get some kind of demographic information about a customer, and then if the product hits its pre-sales threshold of its target, then the production side of things goes ahead, and eventually the customers get the product. Now, in terms of customer feedback, if a product has been successfully delivered, then about 6 weeks after they've received the product successfully, they are invited automatically to give some feedback about the product. And at that point, they've had 6 weeks of using the product, or however you're engaging with it. So the information they give back to you then will be really, really useful, because these are people who are already using the product.
Okay, thanks, Chris. And gentlemen, we're coming towards the end of our session now, and I'd just really like to open it up to you rather than a specific question now, but the topics we've been discussing today is all about the product side of things in launching a business. Is there anything that we haven't touched on, or any that you'd like to talk about on the product side of things, or expand before we finish on any of the answers that you've given earlier? I don't know who wants to start here.
Well, I'll just say a few obvious things. I mean, if you're launching a product in a particular jurisdiction, there are certain laws and bylaws and regulations that you have to adhere to. So make sure you do all the research for all the the stuff that's on the books in the particular country where you want to sell the product. because what you don't want to do is to launch something and then find that you can't sell it. So
Yeah, no, good advice, Chris. Absolutely, absolutely. And Manu, any thoughts, any around this subject that we haven't touched on, or you want to elaborate on?
Yeah, a couple things. One is there is going to be ambiguity, potentially extreme ambiguity. If you're launching a new product, you don't know how it's going to be, perceived. You don't know, how it's going to do, what the feedback is going to be. I found that if you convince yourself as customer number one that you are going to buy the product, if you get very clear in terms of what value you're going to get and whether this actually solves that purpose or not, and you can extend that to immediate circles, like are your friends and family, are they going to actually like and buy? You don't have to often like go to the market and put that in like Tesco or Walmart to get customer feedback. There is a lot that you can do in your immediate circle to gather and do smaller scale market research, understand how the product is going to do. So definitely kind of leverage that and declutter some of the ambiguity. So that's number one. And number two is prototyping. These days it's so easy to prototype. You don't have to invest a whole ton of money, go visit all these factories. Between like 3D printing and depending on what product we're talking about, obviously, if it's an online product, it's even easier. So the initial cost for you to get something out is very low. It was very hard like 10 years ago. So make sure you're leveraging all that, the latest and greatest to get the initial prototypes, before you go down too much and spend a lot of money. So that would be my second piece of advice.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you, actually. Oh, sorry, Chris.
I've just got some other things that I noticed we've got like a minute. The other things you might do is that your first 10 customers are really hard to get. So, do what you can to reward those people. So maybe you could run competitions or quizzes or whatever to try and, get people interested in the product right at the beginning. And once you've got those first customers, then it gets a bit easier.
Great. Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I hope to see you on some of these calls in the coming weeks, in the coming months. And just to remind the audience that next week, same time, so 2:00 UK time, we'll be running this half an hour. So come prepared with some questions, and we'll do our best with our mentors to answer your questions. So see you all next week. Thank you. Okay, guys.